Do you have any idea about the nature of drugs? Did you ever wonder from where are the drugs obtained? What processes they go through before we actually get to have them in our hands? All this information pearls, they are tied up in a string for you all in today's episode. Are you ready to explore? Welcome all to Is Pharmacology Difficult podcast. I'm your host Dr. Radhika Vijay, MBBS MD Pharmacology, and this is the audio hub to get the best simplified basic tips, strategies, methods, and lots of ideas to learn better, understand better, and make your concepts crystal clear if you really find and if there's a question hovering in your minds. Is pharmacology difficult? Lend me your ears for a while and let in the magic of knowledge. Let's begin by understanding the most ground-footed basic drug nature. Actually, drug is nothing, it's a chemical entity. It can be a simple molecule, yes, as simple as you can imagine, or it can be a complex molecule, as complex as you know. Again, next set of classification I want to give to you all to understand better the drug nature. Well, two parts again, organic and inorganic. Organic drugs, they can be weakly acidic, something like penicillin. They can be weakly basic, something like morphine. Or they can be non-electrolytes, something like alcohol. That was another set of drug classification about the nature. Now, next set of classification is about the state of the drugs. State, you understand, no? State of matter. What are the three states of matter? I'm sure you have studied in your lower classes and you know it. Solid, liquid, and gas. Let me give you very good examples. For solid drugs, ampicillin, azithromycin, liquid drugs, ethanol, castor oil, and gaseous drugs, nitrous oxide. That was another set. Very simple, very easy. Coming over to the next set of classification, it can be according to the molecular weight of the drugs. Yeah, that is an important aspect to classify the nature of drugs. And how the molecular weight of the drugs, it makes a lot of sense. Well, it can range from 100 to 1000 Dalton. And I'll give you a justification for these values also. Well, if it's less than 100 Dalton, no specific attributes of drug can be defined. They cannot be described. And that is one extreme aspect. Another extreme coming over to is if it is more than 1000 Dalton, the drugs are too large enough to be filtered from the membranes or barriers, and that is another extreme aspect. But you know what? Exceptions are always there, and exceptions are always important, and exceptions become questions. So better know them nicely and try to remember them as much as you can. You know, whenever a drug pops up and if it's an exception, it should pop up as an exception in your minds also. I know that is so cartoonistic, but it should happen like that actually. So let us come over to the exceptions. The first one is the lithium. It is around 7 Dalton. Heparin is around 10 to 20 kilodalton. And proteins or antibodies, they are around more than 50 kilodalton. And such high molecular weight drugs, actually the most important thing is that you should know their route of drug administration. It is parenteral. They are given by intravenous route. I am sure you know that. Now, you might have heard about xenobiotics. What is this term? What are xenobiotics? Let me throw some light on this particular term because it is right time to talk about xenobiotics. Now, substances, they are foreign to the body. Xeno means foreign to the body. Another concept I want to comment upon here is that chemicals like hormones, autocoids, nutrients, they can also serve as drugs in the body. And let me justify it, because if I don't explain this, it will become a query for all of you. Now, when these so-called drugs, they are modified on different aspects of synthesis, biodegradation, etc., then what do we get? A byproduct or a product of these is what we call a signal molecule. It plays a very important role as a chemical congener of these drugs. Got it? So it is acting like a chemical congener of these substances in the body, and it is really a drug that you will study in the systemic pharmacology. As and when our discussions get deeper, they progress, you'll get to know everything. We'll unfold so many new things and new talks that are so unknown at present. Now let us open the Pandora's box about sources of drugs. Yes, after the nature of drugs, the next point of discussion becomes very importantly the sources of drugs. Now broadly, I really mean broadly, I'm dividing them very broadly as synthetic and non-synthetic. You might be wondering that so many sources of drugs, but when I say broadly, we can just classify them synthetic and non-synthetic. Now before I talk about the non-synthetic, many sources. See, that is making a lot of sense. The many sources that okay? So before I talk about these many non-synthetic sources, let's in short cover the conversation about synthetic sources. Okay, today I want to open up the fact that majority of drugs, they are obtained synthetically or semi-synthetically. Yes, earlier the sources were plants and animals for most of the drugs, but now the spot has changed to laboratories. Why? Why such a tremendous change? Is it beneficial or what it is? Let us throw some light on this discussion point. Being humans, it's good to see the rosy picture first. So let me picturize it. It is depicted as follows. The first point, it's very easy to synthesize the drugs in laboratories. It's very cheap. You might be wondering, yes, it is. Then second important point, controls over the quality production of drugs, they are well exercised when they are synthetically made. Got it? Next important point, modification of the prototype or original chemical substance. It can be done easily to attain a higher standard of safety, efficacy, potency. See how many benefits we are getting. Next important point, more purity and uniformity in the production is achieved. Next important point, any quantity of drug can be produced. There is no limit to the drug source availability as it is there for the natural sources. That is well understood. Next important point, greater selectivity of action, novelty of action, entirely changed activity. All these become a big reality, achievable in true sense. Okay? Next important point, some specific biomolecules, they can be targeted like GP2B3A receptor antagonists, or another one specific biomolecule that is targeted is ACE inhibitors. Well, what are these? If you don't know at present, you'll get to know them as and when we talk about these. Then next important point, chirality can be introduced. Chiral natures, chiral forms, levo, dextro, all these are chiral forms. So this chirality, it can be introduced. Single active enantiomer, it can be made to attain a higher therapeutic goal. Now, very common examples for the synthesized drugs are analgesics, antimicrobials, hypnotics, anti-cancer drugs. Now, let's talk about something specific, the synthetic families of drugs. They are thiazides, benzodiazepines, benzimidazoles, fluoroquinolones, etc. So now you understand the basic idea behind this synthetic drug production. Let me summarize in one line. When the chemical, physical properties of a drug are changed, all in all, pharmacological activity of drug is also changed. Got it? That is so simple to understand, and that is the goal behind this synthetic production of the drugs. And for your utter information, I want to tell you that synthetic process, it evolved in around 19th century. Well, that's all I wanted you all to know today. And there's much untold story about the sources of drugs. So we'll unravel the whole mystery in the next episode. For all the updates and the latest episodes of my podcast, please visit www.ispharmacologydifficult.com, where you can also sign up for a free monthly e-newsletter of mine. It actually contains a lot of updates about the medical sciences, drug information, and my podcast updates also. You can follow me on different social media handles like Twitter, Insta, Facebook, and LinkedIn. They all are with the same name, Is Pharmacology Difficult? If you are listening for the episode for the first time, do follow me here, whatever platform you are consuming this episode. Stay tuned. Do rate and review on iTunes, Apple Podcast. Stay safe, stay happy, stay enlightened. Thank you.